And we're recording. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Trainer Wellness Centre and Annie T Chats. And today we have a very, very special lady that I'd like to introduce you all to, that I met at the very beginning of my journey. So astrology was actually my first love before I stepped into everything. And the lovely Mary English, astrologer Mary English, is here for you all to meet and connect in with. I'm delighted to have you on the podcast, Mary. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. We're having nice sunny weather today, so it's all good.
It was a bit of a surprise to hear from me going, Mary, will you be on the podcast? And you're like, yeah, okay, it's all great, it's all good. Mary, I don't know whether you remember me from years ago, do you? Because you had
Of
such a
course I
big
do.
impact. You had such a really big impact on me. I got attuned to Reiki energy, and I was directed onto listening to your poddy, Learn Astrology with Mary.
hmm
And I got in contact with you, and I wanted to know more. And I remember I signed up, I think it was a 6 week course. That was
It
back
was.
then
Yeah.
in 2018. You're still doing those courses?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 6 weeks, and it was intense because it was full on. Because you gave us homework, we had to go off and we had to do the homework, and it was one on one. It was really good, and it kind of really serves me to this day with everything that I'm doing, because I'll lean into it for the answers. I'm always using the cosmic energy and of course the earth energy to keep me in those lead boots. So Mary, I want you to talk us through everything that you do. I want to introduce you to my world of people that I've met along the way, and your name has come up a few times, and you are mentioned in my book, Hidden Force.
Yes. Yes, I was going to say, actually, I was just going to say, that after you'd had your lessons, you then wrote a book. And I thought it was amazing. It was beautiful.
But you know what, Mary, you were the person that planted that possibility within me. It was because of you and the chats that we were having at that time and the work that we were doing. And you were going on about the trine. I had an air trine, and you had said, oh, you're going to write a book. And I remember I was doing a lot of journaling with my healing at the time. And when you said this, just energetically, I was ready to accept that. And I was like, oh my God. So that was actually because of our conversation. That was all, the way it just leads to everything like that. So it was because of that, because of you. I know it was me too, but it was because of you and you planting that seed of possibility. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about you, because you're the guest on the podcast and I want everyone to hear about what it is that you're doing, Mary.
Yeah, so I'm a professional astrologer. I've been in private practice for more than 25 years, and I started practicing when my son was very small. So he was about 2, and he's 33 this year, so it's a while that I've been practicing. But I also trained in homeopathy, so while I was having my training to be a homeopath, I went to see my homeopath for a consultation, and we were chatting, and she said, oh, blah 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 blah, must have happened. I was telling her something that happened. She said, oh, that must have been your Saturn return. I thought, what the hell's a Saturn return? What is she talking about? So I went home and looked it up. And I thought, well, actually, it wasn't my Saturn return. But then I sort of discovered what Saturn was, and I got very piqued and interested in it. And a few weeks later, I saw a CD-ROM for sale in a computer shop, and it was £10. And this little computer program would make astrology charts for you. So I'd have my homeopathy clients, and I'd in the background do their charts and sort of, not share it with the clients. And I was fascinated by it. So basically I taught myself from that computer program, and that's it. I made a business out of it, because astrology is super, super interesting. It is,
Mm.
yeah, it is, because it lets us help find out what our place is in the world and how we can tackle them and stuff. I mean, I don't particularly believe that astrology is particularly good for prediction, or I don't see astrology as that. There's all different branches of astrology, but I do like it as a form of exploration with a client, so they can find out about their potential, and maybe they're in the wrong hole for them, and they're in a square peg in a round hole, and maybe they'd be better off being in the square hole. So when you started learning, we talked about the fact that you're a sun sign Capricorn and moon in Pisces, and then you've got your Mercury in Sagittarius, which makes you very curious. So you're going to be constantly asking, why?
And I'm still at that, why? And that's not a bad thing. That's a really good thing, because you're just seeking the answers for something, Yeah, it is fascinating. It's multidimensional. I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day. It's weird because, Mary, I haven't heard your podcast, or it hasn't been in my awareness in such a long time, but it's after coming back for me, and I'm like, isn't that just a coincidence? There is no coincidences.
No.
But it was like, oh my goodness, let's listen to this. And I was listening to you explaining about the fixed houses and how there's all different multi-dimensionals to astrology. There really is, though, isn't there? You can go down so many different rabbit holes, but with your understanding of how it reaches and meets you. You explain it beautifully, by the way, because I remember when you started, it was, this is what the sun represents. This is what the moon represents. That's in your episode 1, and you're building upon that. I remember it so well. I've got pages and pages of content that I picked up from you along the way. So what do you say,
Homeopathy. Yeah, I'm retired from that now, but that was a form of alternative therapy, which originated in Germany from a doctor called Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. So there used to be a homeopathic hospital in London. The hospital still exists, but they changed its name. It's now called the Hospital of Integrated Medicine. But yeah, it was a popular form of medicine that didn't involve giving large amounts of drugs to people, because the guy that invented it, when he was practicing as a doctor, the idea was that you gave somebody so much chemicals, back then, that they would basically either die of the disease or the chemical. There wasn't, much else. So he didn't really want to use medicines, because medicines, they had bloodletting and everything then. He was completely against it. And so he developed this form of medicine that used a small amount of medicine rather than a lot, and he developed a system called provings, where you would give a healthy human volunteer some substance, see what symptoms are produced, and then he came up with a concept that like cures like. And so if you've got something like a fever, you give a person a small amount of remedy that would have produced a fever, but you just give them a small amount, so you're matching it, and then the body manages to take over and correct what might be wrong with them. So it was a fascinating amount of time that I spent practicing, but I am not taking new clients on now. I'm coming up for retirement age next year. So I'm going to continue with astrology. But it was so funny because the other day on Instagram I said, oh, what age do astrologers retire? I had so many people respond to that, like, we're not going to retire. Well, I'm not going to retire, but yeah.
Yeah, it's because it's so fascinating. It just kind of it goes layers upon layers upon layers. So astrology kind of hooked into you, and you were just like, you got the answer. Very practical, isn't it? It's kind of like you can see exactly what's happening with, even just that little 1 degree of movement from an outer planet opposed to an inner planet, and it just has that profound effect on our humanness, bringing up all these different aspects to us and our daily lives, I suppose.
Yes, because you can have what's called the natal chart, which is like your fingerprint, your birth chart. So that lets you know who you are and how you respond to things and how you react in certain situations. And then there are other things called transits. So these are the planets as they're moving in the sky now, a bit like traffic coming past, that will either affect you or not, depending on what combo you've got in your own natal chart. But I think the most amazing thing I found out when I first started learning astrology, that wasn't just the sign. I'm a Pisces. Forgive me, I'm a Pisces. But I wasn't just a Pisces. I had all these other things in my chart. And interestingly, my auntie, and I come from a Catholic family, so that was a bit unusual. She was very into astrology, and she'd told me at some point in my life that I'd got something Gemini in my chart. And I thought that she'd said that I'd got Gemini in my first house. So for all through my life, I'd tell people, oh, I've got Gemini. I haven't. I've got Moon in Gemini. So I'd remembered that completely wrong. I'm sure she told me the right thing, but I'd remembered it wrong. And then when I did study my own chart, I found out, oh, Moon in Gemini, chatty. So that was So the reason I started my podcast was I'd remembered when I first started learning astrology, if I hadn't got that computer program, it would have been an absolute blur. All the books I read didn't make any sense, and what are they talking about? But this little computer program, which unfortunately doesn't operate anymore because it runs on Windows 90, it sort of made a nice picture of the person's birth planet, but it had little explanations, and I could just click, and this means this and that means that, and that was one of the earlier methods that I used to learn how everything was. And obviously then I read lots of books, because when you first start learning something, your book pile gets very big. You were reading loads, weren't you?
Yeah, and I actually forgot to mention that you are actually an author as well. I've got all your books, I think.
Oh, thank you.
I have them all on the shelf here behind me. This is what I'd forgotten about that. Sorry. I will add it in, the author and astrologer. So you've written loads of books.
17, yes. So I've done one for each sign of the zodiac.
Yeah, I love it.
And that was a funny story, because I wrote my first book, astrology book, and I entitled it "How to Survive a Pisces," because I'm a Pisces, and I call myself a reformed Pisces, that I don't do the things that Pisces can do, which is drag everybody down with them into some weirdness. Anyway, so they're all funny titles, and I wrote the first book and I submitted it to a publisher, because I'd been on a radio program, and the lady that was on the radio program with me, she was published by this particular company, and then blah, blah, blah. Long story short, anyway, I contacted them, submitted my book to them, How to Survive a Pisces. What I didn't know, they accepted my book, and then I found out afterwards, many years later, the person who'd accepted my book was the same sign of the zodiac as me. So he'd said, yes, we'll have your book. But he said, I don't just want one book. And I thought, oh, Lord, what am I going to do? I'll have to do one of each sign of the zodiac. But because I'd started at Pisces, which is the last sign, I then had to go backwards through the signs of the zodiac, because it wouldn't have made any sense if I'd then got Pisces and then Aries. So I just went, I wrote each book backwards. So I think I must be the only astrologer that's done all the signs of the zodiac backwards, but that was the way it worked out.
That's actually a pretty cool story, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true though. He is a Pisces. He's still alive. Yeah.
It's so interesting to read a book actually from. I think all authors should have at the start of it, I'm a sun, moon, because it's great to have their perspective, because it's just so complex, everything, it's trying to understand everything. But it's really good to know if, if I was to write,
you have written a book.
I've written 2 books.
There we go.
And more to come. So it's really good to read the perspective on the subject of how they are detailed, because mine is very much detailed and structured as a Capricorn would, you know. So I think the Pisces be more flowy, or the water signs would be more flowy with it. But yeah, it's an interesting perspective to have, that everyone should be, hi, I'm Anne, I'm a Capricorn, I'm this moon.
But people used to do that in the 70s. They'd go, hi, and what sign of the zodiac? It doesn't happen anymore. Like you'd go to not always, but you could go somewhere and you go, hi, I'm a Pisces or whatever. But yeah, it doesn't happen. No, the trouble is, in the UK, astrology is considered a form of prediction and sort of weirdness, really. Oh, you're an astrologer. And then people will confuse it with astronomer. The amount of time I've said to people I'm an astrologer, and they go, oh, you study the stars. No, I've got nothing to do with the stars. Astrology is the planets, the visible things that are in the sky that we all orbit around the sun. And so that's a big confusion to start with. People think astrologers study the stars. The stars are too far away to be able to study them. but yeah, so that's a confusion. But also people think it's just the signs of the zodiac. You're either a Capricorn or a Leo or a Virgo, and they think it's just that. But when you unpack the box, the Pandora's box of
Yeah,
astrology,
literally.
you find all this other stuff. You know, get Moon and this and Mercury and that, and a thing called an ascendant. You know, whoa, 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 what's an ascendant? That's the time of birth you're born, and it's the sign that's on the horizon, and that indicates how you came into the world, what sort of influences were around you at your birth. So your ascendant, for instance, is Libra, which is about fairness, which is about relationship, which is about balance. And when you're stressed, you could get indecisive, because Libra ascendant people, when under stress, can be a bit indecisive. So yeah. But you do need to know the time of birth to be able to work out an ascendant. But if you think back, astrology's been going for 2,000 years, okay? More than 2,000 years. The Babylonians started it. They didn't have the technical equipment we've got. I mean, I can pick up a phone now with an app on it, and I go blip, 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 put my data in, and the bing, I've got a chart. They would have had to have plotted things and written it down and calculated and stuff. That's why I never could have been in astrology until computer programs were invented. I seriously couldn't do the maths of it. I'm not up for that.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone's up for it. But it's. I have seen books written with literally just all numbers, and it's to do with astrology. And I'm like, I'd love to be able to read that. It's just like, no, I couldn't, you know. But it is fascinating because I know ultimately it's all numbers and dates and degrees, and
Yes.
that's how we are living our life and going through our day to days of trying to understand ourselves. So you mentioned talk us through the different planets, Mary, because it is, I think everyone should, and and tell us how to do this, because I know that you pointed me in the direction of is
Astro.com, yes. So
Yeah.
they're a Swiss website. It's owned by a guy called Alois. I can never pronounce his first name. I think it's Alois Trendle, and he's Swiss. And he's a computer programmer, and he was into astrology. So that's how that website was first created. It's one of, because there's two websites, one of the oldest websites that's specifically devoted to astrology. It's quite enormous. It's a vast website. There's lots of information on there. So on my podcast, the first 20 episodes, and we're up to episode 450 now, but the first 20 episodes teach you astrology, and I recommend on there that you use the website astro.com, because you can make an account, you can put your details in there, and bing, your chart will be produced. And so on there, you could literally zip over there now and put your data in, and you'll find stuff. So the sun sign, which you'll know, because most people know what sign, that you always knew that you were a Capricorn, I presume, yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, okay. So your sun sign's Capricorn, and then the moon, which changes sign every 2 days, is the next planet. And in astrology, the sun is who we are, the ego, the bit that you like to show to the world. And then the moon is our subconscious or our unconscious part of us, the bit that people don't necessarily see until we've absolutely lost it, or we're trying to nurture someone, because the moon is both of those things. It's our emotions and also our nurturing. And the reason that it's classified this in astrology is because the moon reflects the light of the sun. So in astrology, we'd say that the moon reflects the light of the sun. So the moon reflects what is going on for us inside, so our feelings. So you've got moon in Pisces, which makes you emotionally very sensitive. And in the segment of the chart called the fifth house, that's about creativity, romance, and babies. And I think you've had a number of babies. And but it's also about creativity. There you go. So the moon is how we feel. So if you're trying to work out why, so say you're working with someone, right, and you're working with somebody really tricky, and you cannot work them out. You're just like, why are they like that? It doesn't make any sense. So you're not talking sense now, because sense is the sun sign. That's the rational part of it. Like, why are they like that? Find out what moon sign they are. So the moon, as I say, changes sign every day, every couple of days, every 2 days. And then that'll give you an indicator of how they are emotionally. The next planet's Mercury, and that's how we communicate. So we either communicate fast, in your case it's in a fire sign, which is Sagittarius, or slower, in my case, because I've got my Mercury retrograde in Pisces. So Mercury is how you communicate, so how you talk with other people, and it's the thing you talk about the most, depending on which part of your chart it's in. So where you've got Mercury in the second house, which is about money. So there might be conversations about that. And then the next planet is Venus. So that's the love planet. And I think most people have heard of that because she's a goddess, and there's, quite a bit more out there about Venus in existence. So Venus is about love and affection and things we do or don't like. And then Mars, which everybody's talking about at the moment because Elon Musk wants to send some rocket up there and do something daft, like try and live on there, which wouldn't work. But anyway, Mars is about action, aggression and energy because it's a red planet, and we're not taking literally how a planet is, but the way that astrology has sort of formed itself over the years is the consideration of how that planet is in the sky and how it relates to everything else in the cosmos. And Mars is red, and so they said back then, Mars was a war god, so we talk about it now as being the god of war, but it's not just that, it's about your energy levels. So if you're trying to work out why maybe you've got bad energy, I've treated a number of people with things like long COVID and
isn't it?
yeah, and ME, those types of things, sort of low energy levels, then you need to check out where your Mars is, because Mars is your energy levels. Yeah. And then we go to planets that are much further away from us on Earth. We've got Jupiter, which is the lucky planet, which is in the sign of Cancer at the moment. So hello, if you're a Cancer, lucky planet's in your sign for the next 12 months. And then we've got Saturn, which is the planet of responsibility, like do the right thing. And then we've got the three outer planets. Now, the Babylonian astrologers couldn't use them. They weren't visible from the night sky, and they didn't have telescopes then. So those three planets completely upset the astrological world when they were discovered, because then everybody had to sort of invent, so to speak, different interpretations for them. But Uranus, which was discovered in Bath, which you learned about when you were studying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, Uranus was discovered in Bath. That's the planet of sudden things happening, and it's just about to change sign on the 8th of this month. And so normally when it first changes sign, sudden things happen. So watch out for when we get to the 8th. There could be things going on. Uranus is about unpredictability, that's type of stuff. And then we've got Neptune, which is the psychic planet. And I think your Neptune's in Saggy. So you'll have a psychic side. And then the last planet is Pluto, which is at the ends of our solar system. It's zillions of miles away. That wasn't discovered until some chappie in America who was a trainee in I can't remember the observatory he was working at, but he discovered it by, I don't know, scanning the night sky and then eventually seeing this thing. And so astronomers at one point said Pluto wasn't a planet. So, well, the astrologers had already started using it, so tough. It still exists, it's still part of our solar system, but it's their way of categorizing things. But in astrology, it represents deep change and transformation. So that's the bit of your chart where you're going to make the deepest changes. And what could they be? They could be anything. It depends what you classify transformation as being. So that's a quick run through of the planets for you.
Thanks very much. They're all going to love that. Everyone's going to be going into astro.com and just putting in learning about themselves, because that's what people want to know more about themselves, and to unpack that they're not just limited to you're just a Capricorn and that's it. Your moon, the Mercury, all these planets tell so much more about a person and about yourself. And just even educating yourself on that, and then sharing that with others, going, oh my God, and so are you. But it's the planet Pluto. I talk really quick, don't I? That's that Mercury in Sagittarius.
Sagittarius, absolutely, is a fire sign. Yeah.
When I'm talking and it goes really quick, I get all words backwards and everything, because I'm like blah, 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 blah. So you were talking about Pluto there. Was that not somebody's daughter that just came across it by accident? Was that not?
No, this discovery of it was in an observatory. So it was a trainee in the observatory who happened to discover it. I think people had sort of vaguely seen it. The story that you're thinking of is, how did it get its name? It's not named after Pluto from the Disney characters. It was someone's daughter who lived in London, and he was a diplomat, and his daughter was studying Greek mythology at school. And so this is quite back in the day, he'd had a telegram from America to say that this new new planet had been discovered. And so he asked I can't remember if it was his daughter or his granddaughter, what name should we call it? And so she said Pluto, because she was learning about the Greek myths and stuff, and it stuck. So that's how the name happened. But yes, it was a young girl who named the planet. She was alive up until about 4 or 5 years ago. I haven't checked this year. I don't know if she's still alive. But if she is, she'd be in her late 80s, early 90s.
Reading that in your book. Pretty cool. Now go back to these 12 books that you wrote, because they are fascinating and they are there, and I like to kind of read up about other people. When you're going through something, you're like, I want to understand them a little bit more. And that's what's really cool about those books. So it's kind of like how to cheer up a Capricorn?
Correct. Yeah.
Is it how to cheer up a Capricorn? Yep. And they all have names associated with their personality of how to work with their energy.
Yes.
What was the Piscean one?
How to survive a Pisces, but that was very tongue-in-cheek. It was just sort of like, what can happen with an unreformed Pisces is they're so sensitive. They pick up everybody else's feelings, and then consequently, because of that, they get overwhelmed. The biggest thing that Pisces suffer from is overwhelm. And when someone's overwhelmed, they can't make a rational decision. They can't do the right thing. So everything will sort of spiral out of control. But the titles of the books, because I've got a subscription list, which I've had for a long time, subscribers, and a lot of the titles were suggestions by people on the subscription list. So when I got to the Aries one, which was now the last book that I'm writing, I can't remember what title I'd come up with. It was something like How to Go to War or something with an Aries. Oh my God, that really upset the Aries. And so we ended up with the title How to Appreciate an Aries, because an Aries wants to be appreciated. They don't want to be worshipped. They don't care if you do or don't like them, but whatever it is that they do, they want that to be appreciated. So that's how the title. Yeah.
For the Aries to have the recognition.
Yes, not recognition like a Leo, that Leo wants the crown and the carpet and stuff, but they want to be appreciated for something that they've done or the way that they are. And it's not worship. All they want is appreciation. And I say, two people emailed me, and one in particular who's a teacher, and she is an Aries. She said, no, I don't like those turtles, don't like. She said, so I said, what about appreciation? Oh yes, so that got a tick. So it was, even though I wrote the books, the input for them was very much a community thing, because I come from a very large family, Catholic family. You can imagine there were 5 of us. So I tend to like to have input quite a lot from other people. I might do my own flavour to it and stuff. And so all the chart examples in there are from people that had agreed to have the chart shared, or they're famous people that their data is out on the internet, so we know what date and time that they're born, so I could use their data. But they're just little books. They're not complex. You don't need a degree in engineering or whatever to understand them. I wanted, and I want the astrology that I teach to be easy to understand, because then you can go off and do marvellous stuff later. But where I'm at and the way I teach is to make it as easy as possible, so you can just grasp a bit of it and then go wherever else is you like with it.
So it takes you, and that's explain to us. You do that, by the way, because I remember thinking I'm not going to be able to contain this, and you said to me, Anne, you will be able to do it if you're going to put the work in between this week and that week. Come back to me with your questions. And I was like, right, okay, I love this woman. She's where it's at. You break it all down for us. Now, what I did want to actually, because I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day, and because the interview was coming up, I said, oh, listen in. And you were talking about the differences of how you teach us fixed astrology. Explain the differences to us when it comes to fixed astrology.
Right, okay, so you're talking about fixed, mutable and cardinal, the different types of signs. Okay.
What I do, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we can divide the signs of the zodiac into earth, air, fire and water, but we can divide them again into what we call fixed signs, mutable signs and cardinal signs. So with you yourself being a Capricorn, that's a cardinal sign, and the cardinal signs are leaders. So we've got Capricorn, Cancer, Libra and Aries, and not leaders as in, Aries is very much a leader, but wanting, and also they're linked to the seasons and the solstices, so they're the beginning, and the zodiac starts on the first day of Aries. Anyway, cardinal signs want to, when they're learning something, they need to plan ahead. But fixed signs, which not a lot of people really understand, those signs of the zodiac are Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius and Leo. Fixed signs don't like change. Not to say they can't change, because we haven't just got one thing in a chart. We've got all the signs of the zodiac in a chart. We might not have a planet in every sign, but we're going to have all those. But fixed signs of the zodiac just don't like change. And so, and then there's the mutable signs. The mutable signs are Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius and Gemini, and they love change. They'll change every day of the flipping week if they could. So they're ones that like change. But when I'm working with people, also cardinal, fixed, mutable, they're in different time zones. The mutable signs live in the past, yesterday, and the fixed signs live in the present, today, and then the cardinal signs are in the future, so tomorrow. So when I'm working with a client, I need to take into account where do they want to talk about? Do they want to talk about what happened to them? Or fixed signs want to talk about what's happening now? Or a cardinal sign wants to talk about what might happen tomorrow and how can they get there? So I find that's a useful way to be able to give the best service to my clients. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's amazing. Like, I brought that into my teaching. So I'm a teacher now, and I bring in the cardinal fix. The astrology that I've learned from you, I kind of integrate it with the chakras that I've learned from myself. I kind of bring it all together with that, but I always go explain about the cardinal, fixed, mutable. But it's really cool that you've just said that. So it's about past, present and future as well, the signs. That's really cool. You see, this is why you need to meet everyone. Everyone needs to meet Auntie Mary. This is like Auntie Mary. And when I think back to the times that I was with you, Mary, on the one-on-ones that we were doing, there was times I just sat there and cried. I just couldn't see any way through what I was going through. And you just kind of like opened those little doorways that was called astrology, and say, listen, start focusing on you. Start focusing on learning about you and how you are going to adapt to situations, how you work through things. And this is going to explain where you are now and how it's going to change for you. So I'll always remember that, credit's due.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. So tell us, so I just wanted to ask you this as well. Life purposes and strengths and weaknesses, that comes up in people's charts, isn't it? That's really interesting to know.
Yes, there's a thing in the chart called the moon's nodes. So the south node is what we got up to in a previous life, and then the north node is where we could be going this lifetime. So it's not life purpose as in job description, because people confuse life purpose with, well, I'm just a mum. What do you mean you're just a mum? You are bringing the next generation into the world. Don't ever say to me you're just a mum. Boomf, you'll get a knock on the head. You are bringing the next generation into the world. Mums are very important, just equally as dads are, but anyway. North, thank you. North node is an important part of the chart because it lets us know where we can aim ourselves spiritually. So yours is in the 4th house, which is the home, the roots, the family. It's in the sign of Aquarius, which makes it a bit more wacky, weird and unusual. So within your family environment, you're going to be classified as someone unusual, which you'll be perfectly happy with. That's not going to be an issue for you, because I think you've also got Venus in Aquarius as well. And then knowing where your north node is can help you a little bit more in that question, why am I here? What's it all about? But that is a question I get asked a lot, and I'll bounce it back to the person, well, where would you like to be? Because I couldn't tell you where you need to be in life. I can give you some questions to think about. It isn't my job to teach someone their chart. My job is to teach them astrology so they can discover their chart and find out it in their way. Because when I help someone, that's why my podcast is called Learn Astrology with Mary. It's not Mary's teaching you astrology. So work with the person and find out which way they'll learn best. And the people that learn with me via the podcast or one-on-one like yourself, they'll go off where they need to go, and then you are where you need to go, doing your thing your way. Great. Lush.
You found it, yeah. So North Node, the North Node will tell people, give a little key into what they should be doing.
What their soul is happiest for them to do.
And where's my North Node?
4th house, home and roots.
Home and roots, okay.
But in the sign of Aquarius, so it's a bit more unusual. So you are working from home as we speak. You're not out in an office.
No, I'm
Absolutely.
working from home.
Yeah.
And that's important for me. It was important for me to, we have at the side of the house that I stayed home, that I needed to be still in the family unit, that I wasn't moving out. And that was a big question for me. And I was like, no, I need to stay here so I can come in and out of work mode, mommy mode, wife mode, the whole lot, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of worked. There you go, and that's probably why it worked. See, Mary, you're so cool at what you do.
It's not me you're cool, it's astrology's cool.
No, but it's you. It's how you express that and how you explain that and how you teach with people, you know, or how you learn. And that I'm all for the learning as well, you know.
But you never stop learning astrology. It's not one day you wake up and you know it all. No. It's not like that. That you can be studying astrology forever and you'll still find other things to find out. And because for me, it's more about people. How can we understand each other better? And I think when you look at somebody that's in the news or a politician or whatever, and you look at the chart, you go, well, that's why they're like that. You can't expect people to be any different from who they are. But finding out who they are and how to relate to them is extremely useful, I found. Yeah.
That's why I have in my book, and I always say to people that it will, you can have a look at other people and, you know, because I put a little bit of astrology in there. It's more really about chakras, but the astrology that I did learn, and you helped me with that actually with the cards. Do you remember we were doing the one-on-ones and I was asking all the questions to help with the book, and that's why you got the question in it. We can associate that with different people, and it's how to work best with them, their positive and negative traits, which we all have. Every single one of us have them. It's just coming in with that discernment, isn't it?
Yes, well, some people have got more negative traits than others.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's the work, I think, Mary, that you're working on bettering yourself. When you know better, you do better, you know?
Yes, and a lot of people don't work on themselves. You know, quite a lot of people in the astrological community are working on themselves, which is why they even got into astrology to start with, and I think that's extremely commendable. Some people aren't interested in working on themselves. Why would they be? They're too busy doing whatever it is that they're doing. But I think a little bit of self-reflection and considering who we are and how we relate is useful, but it also depends whether or not you want to progress sort of spiritually or whatever, or whether or not you want to reincarnate, or I don't know, go up and see the fairies or something, you know.
Yeah, but it's interesting that you can, if you were struggling, that you can go into your chart and you will know what such a planet means, and you go, okay, and it's kind of like you're not blaming anyone in particular, you're just blaming the planets. And I think that's a really cool thing to do, that you go, damn you, Mercury, going into retrograde, and this is why I'm confused about this. It's not kind of saying it's your fault. It's deflecting the blame from people here, and it's just working with cosmic energy, you know. It's fascinating. I love it.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
Okay, so Mary, we'll close it off now in a few minutes, but thanks so much. You're really good for taking the time for to come onto the poddy. You're very good. So tell people how they will find you, and you know, about your own podcast as well.
Okay, yeah, the website's maryenglish.com, or you can get to it maryenglish.co.uk. The podcast is called Learn Astrology with Mary, but it's on all the platforms, so you can just Google that and find it. It's hosted on a platform called Libsyn, but if you Google it, you'll find it. It's on iTunes and Spotify, etc. The first 20 episodes will teach you astrology. Don't forget episode 21, because that's all about indigos. And you can also... you can find me on Instagram, maryenglish.co.uk, which is the same address as my website, and it's been really lovely speaking with you today, Anna. So it's really nice to come on, Anne, and to be talking about astrology. It's my favourite subject.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to book in with you now and get a little one-on-one, and let's go through the chart. And that's exactly what you're doing as well on your own podcast, Learn Astrology with Mary. I hear that you're reading out people's questions that they're sending
Yes.
through. That's really, really cool. So they can send you some questions
Yes.
in, and then if they have permission, if you have permission,
Yes.
then that's what you're doing live. I think that's
Yeah.
brilliant. That's really cool. You
Yeah.
know that you can read mine out, no problem whatsoever.
I have to send the questions in first.
I'll send in some questions,
Yeah.
but I'll definitely be booking in for you for one. It's great to see you again.
Thank
It's
you,
been
darling.
a few years, but it's nice to reconnect in with you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
darling.
It was
Thank you.
lovely having you with us. Take care. Have a gorgeous day today.